this is my little tangent. You know, I always gotta go on a tangent each episode. Like, that's what I do. That's what I do. And I had an addiction to investigation discovery. So we were in our apartment. I had just became RN. And it was my day off. We in an apartment. I'm with the kids. We laughing and joking. They're eating at the dining room table. I'm sitting in the living room watching Investigation Discovery. And then I see that the murder that they were talking about happened in my apartment complex where I was living. So I screamed. The kids like, what? What? I'm like, she died here. They're like, who died? My kids were scared to sleep in their own bed. Hey, Tally.
Hey, Nunu.
We are back again, back to back, mate, back to Bim. Hey, y'all. We're coming back with the second installment of our Toxic series. This one we named Family Affair. We had an opportunity last week to discuss some of the toxic traits that we've experienced in friendship. And now today we're going to dive into the most intimate family. um, Sort of kind of like the generational bondage that's passed down and handed down like hand-me-downs to within a family.
Yeah, like that clothing that you don't like that shirt that they be handing down from one cousin to the next cousin to the next cousin until it has holes and then it's in your family. You're like, can we get rid of this one? Can we buy something new? That kind of hand me down. Um, we're gonna talk about how the thing is about like what you learn, right? Technically, family is your first teacher, right? They're the first people that you meet. Like, there's a I don't know if you guys ever watched Silent Hill. On Silent Hill, there's this part where the mom says she loves being a mom. The reason she loves being a mom is because mother is God in the eyes of a child. In other words, right? When our babies are born, when our children are born, the first person that they know is their mom. Their providers, the people that take care of them. The mom is the person that feeds them. So that's God to them. That's who provides everything, feeds them, changes them, clothes them, takes care of them, like puts them to sleep. All that is done by that mother, which is God to them. So this is our first like example of who's gonna lead us or how we're supposed to do things. So everything we learn in the family unit affects every other unit in life. You know what I mean? It affects your friendships. It affects how you see people. Because if something happens to you negatively, then you're not going to have that trust for people. You're going to be heavily guarded because that's what you've been taught. Like remember how like kids that are like left in orphanages, some of them have failures to strive. That means like they don't have that comfort of a family. So family units, family ties, the people that raise you play a major role in who you're going to be tomorrow.
Yes, girl, that's damage. And it's like by the time you realize it, the damage is kind of done, right? So when we thought about what in a family unit and how the family unit affects us as individual human beings, we looked at some of the toxic traumas and the things that that anyone could experience in a family unit that could be passed down, hand-me-downs, and some of the we made a few, we put a few items on that list, you know what I mean? And it was important for us to kind of think long and hard of it. Part of what we said when we first wanted to start the podcast was that we we wanted to expose ourselves in a way in which we can grow and learn, right? So when we have these conversations, you and I, like we do in private and then in this group setting with all our loves out there, um, we want to look at ourselves and realize what in this conversation, what from our families we've what have we taken on, or what can some of the people out there, what have they taken on that they may not even realize that they have, you know what I mean, have taken on, or put on their shoulders, or, step into them shoes, or tied up them pants and put a little belt on it, some Gucci belt. And yeah, so the first thing that we said we wanted to discuss, as part of the toxic traumas that somebody could experience, the first thing that we said was abuse. I'll let you kind of go into what type of abuse can be passed down, or how abuse can affect someone, and how they thrive, like you just said.
So abuse can be in any forms. It could be physical, sexual, um, physical, sexual, and examples of that:
Mental.
mental and emotional.
Hmm.
Yeah, mental and emotional, and it's like it could be brought down in different ways, right? For example, physical. If you're hit, right? If you're raised on being hit, then there's a possibility that either you're not going to hit your kids at all because you're like, that was not cool, I didn't like it, so you're scared. Or you could be that parent that is very abusive with your child, like you hit them a lot. Some people don't take spanking to that excessive level, but some people like guard, like they really control how they spank or how they discipline their kids because they're like, this was a norm growing up. Talking, how do you talk to your kids? You know what I mean? Like, um if you call the kid out their name, if you're called out your name, if you are called out your name, then 9 out of 10 times when people talk to you nicely, you're not gonna notice. And then be like, hey love, you're so beautiful. Who?
You be like,
That
"Hey, if you don't back up, we gonna have a problem." You get defensive because feeling good and somebody talking to you good ain't.
you'd be like, what is this? What is this feeling I'm feeling? Like it's more of an insult to you. You know what I mean? And sometimes you don't even notice it. Like you can go through life taking all the insults, like people calling you names, and you're like, it don't phase me, like it don't bother me because that's what you grew up on. And then somebody treats you nice, and you're like, why are you talking to me like that? And the guy's like, whoa, hun, like I love you, like I legit, like I think you're beautiful, like I'm just trying to marry you, and you're like, ah! Poor man, like what just happened here? But this is that generational, baggage that we carry, when we're taught something negatively. um I know, sometimes we as people, right, we don't even realize that we're abusing our kids because we have blind faith that our family is going to have our kids back. You know what I mean? Like we believe that they have the best intent for our kids, and sometimes the worst predators are within your own family.
Hmm. Yes, I can. I definitely agree. Uh, Plus, when we're talking about, like, even something as minimal as mental abuse, right? Or like yelling or unnecessary, negative talk, especially when a child is in that developmental stage, it can really cause them to grow up to be some angry people. And we know them people. Shoot,
Mm.
sometimes we are them people, you know what I'm saying? And, we discussed too, like the whole fit, like you said, the physical. If you're being hit, you're either going to be like a polar opposite. Like you're either going to be, like you said, fearful, or you're going to take on that negative trait. Sexual, I'll dive a little bit more into sexual. Like, having sexual abuse, like, and usually sexual abuse happens in the most developmental years of a child, right, where they're learning behaviors, where they're learning who they're going to be. Who they're going to be is solidifying, is being shaped and molded, right? So a kid being sexually abused, um in a family situation, is even more difficult, because I know so many sexually abused people that I've talked to, that say that they weren't believed, or that person was still had access to them to be able to re-victimize them, even after they told, even after um the truth came out, some of the family members didn't want to believe that that child was telling the truth. And part of abuse is it's effective because the person who's being abused is in a vulnerable state. you
Mm-hmm.
know uh Statistics are more likely that a child is more abused, a disabled person is more abused, people that are in a vulnerable state. So when you're growing up as a kid and you either experience sexual abuse or know of, hey, don't I've been even told, hey, don't go near this person, hey, don't go near this. I'm like, well, how is this person walking free, able to re-victimize people, and the only thing that's being said is, hey, don't go near them? Like, that's a lot of people out there. Every race of people, every ethnic background, every nationality I've talked to, every gender, um, have they've had some type of sexual, physical, verbal, mental abuse. So it's not solely specific to a specific type of person, you
Yeah.
know, and the people we love take our kindness for weakness, and they feel as though they can get away with it because they've, what I mean, spent years on, those people are usually manipulative. Abusers are manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to work a system. Physical abusers, mental abusers, sexual abusers, they have perfected the art of working the system, and they'll make you think you're crazy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I always told my kids from the time that they were able to understand, I don't care who it is. If anybody is doing anything inappropriate, to let me know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I would always ask, to the point where sometimes I would feel like, oh gosh, should I ask them? You know what I mean? You also have to be ready for that conversation if they do say, yes, I am. Because what you gonna do? If they say, yeah, I was.
I'm gonna handle it. That means
You
I'm
going
going.
no, but seriously, are you gonna be the type to sweep it under the rug? Are you gonna be the type that, when it comes down to abuse and abuse of a child or a vulnerable person, for me, that there's nothing else you can say.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can say. So I think abuse was very important because a lot of people have serious mental illnesses right now, anxiety, depression,
Mm.
their bipolar may be exacerbated. uh you know Signs of mental illness arise in really stressful situations
Yeah.
or traumatic situations. So if you're constantly being berated, beat, or feeling like, you're going to be taken advantage sexually, what does that do to a growing child or a growing, you know what I mean? Or an adolescent as they're growing into a teenager and into adulthood. It does a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talk about it today. And we said when we had these conversations together that we would leave no stone unturned, because it's a lot of people that grow up to be very damaged people because they've had abuse happen to them. They've had the people that they trusted the most let them down because they didn't take their verbalization of abuse seriously, and that has to stop, because it's a lot of people that should be walking this earth right now that are not walking this earth because they've taken their own lives because of the abuse that they endured and not feeling like they had someone with them. So yeah, I'm gonna digress on that because that touched the little nerve I got, but my last nerve, my last nerve, my last. Whoo, yeah, we gotta lighten up a little bit on that one because that just touched my nerve. But the second thing with that we said was very vital, as far as generational baggage. We said addiction was one of the things that we had on our list. So you want to lend a word to addiction and how it's passed down in a family.
Addiction is it could be a lot of things. Like nobody realizes how addiction can be so many things. It could be um what you call it, addiction to sex. It could be an addiction to porn. It could be an addiction to gambling. It could be addiction to drugs. Addiction goes a lot of ways. It's really a codependency. You know what I mean? Like we sometimes right we have situations where we become codependent on taking care of somebody because that's what we're taught. Like sometimes we're taught as kids that we should want less, or somebody comes before us. So automatically you're always putting this person before you. Now you're codependent because you expect like validation from this person, because now what you call it, you're a good person if you follow directions. So now there's a codependency. And this could like go further down the road, right? Like if your mother is married to a, a man who is addicted to alcohol. So they have their own abuse. He has his abuse with the alcohol, right? And then he comes home and brings that abuse home. Now he's being abusive to his wife,
Mm-hmm.
who in turn, let's say she has kids. Let's say she has three of them, young. Let's say she's 22. Now she has three kids, an abusive husband that is beating her. She still has to be the provider. She has to help provide, and she has to be a mother. So when these little kids are bothering her, mommy, 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 how is she gonna take out her anger if she's beat all the time? Like this is what she's taught is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So then them children, they move down life, and now they have these abusive relationships with their children because that's what they were taught. And it all stems from this addictive nature because daddy couldn't cope with his issues. So instead of coping with them, he started drinking and beating on his wife. And now this woman who didn't know anything about this life is taking it because she's codependent on her relationship to this man. Because probably where she grew up, she was taught to be codependent to a man.
Mm. Woo! Tap in, tap in. Wait a minute there. Yeah, look at that. Look at that little superstar over there.
I try. Let me stop.
Addiction. Okay, so addiction for me is so touchy because I fight every day not to be addicted to anything
Oh,
because addiction has been in my family for so long. You know, multiple generations of addiction. And to where I was afraid. I was afraid. I went away to college and was offered cocaine, like, oh, here, you want to try this? Everybody else did it around me. I was like, nah, I'm good. Because I have relatives who just tried cocaine one time and they've been crackheads for 30, 40 years. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah.
for me, it's like I ran at the thought, but then sometimes I still obsess over not being addictive because I like to enjoy wine once a week.
Yeah.
My love with the inner voice with TallyNuNu, you know? And I'm like, ooh, once a week, is that too much? You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
always for me a constant battle of um toning down that addictive nature.
Moderation.
I've been addicted to multiple things in my life, not in um a detrimental way like alcohol or drugs, but I've been addicted to behaviors.
Mm.
I've been addicted to people, you know, where I was so addicted to them that I stayed in a situation that drained my whole life force. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't looking like this. I wasn't feeling like this. But it was because I lost sight of who I was. And that's what everyone in addiction, everyone that has addiction lose sight of who they are, their self-worth.
Yeah.
Tap in, sis, tap in. Their self-worth is devalued
Mm.
because they've then put something above their self for their highest good. You know, every day we're just trying to do what we need to do to be at our highest level or to be at our greatest good, at least decent people, right? So if you have these addictive behaviors, you're addicted to people, you're addicted, like you said, the codependency, the traumatic bonds, like we just said, generational bondage that you have with people, you lose sight of who you are. The addictive
Happy.
bond that you have with alcohol, you lose sight of who you are.
Mhm.
You can't be at your optimal or your best self if you lose sight of who you are. You are your own foundation. You if you don't have a strong sense of who you are as a person, everything you put on top, everything that foundation is weak, is faulty. We said that before. It's built on land that's going to crumble, and you you allow things, you set your life on a course sometimes that is out of control. You know what I mean? And and that's all I'm gonna say about addiction, because that's also a touchy subject for me. Like everything that we discuss for real between us is touchy subjects, and that's why we put it to the forefront, because it calls to those inner things, and I ain't gonna get emotional, but it calls to those inner, that's why we said the inner voice, right? It calls to those negative thoughts that we tell ourselves. It calls to the negative feelings that we feel, uh, the experiences that we experience, and we can put on a good front for the world. You know what I mean? The whole world, Craig. We podcasters of the world, Craig. And we can put on a good front for the world, but who are you when you looking in the mirror, when you talking to yourself? You know what I mean? And that first conversation we had, self-worth, will be a topic it will be threaded throughout this whole thing. You know what I mean? Um, because that's the most important thing, that your inner self, how you feel and how you're able to progress and how you're able to strengthen yourself when you don't feel like you have that support. But that's all I'm gonna say about addiction. And then we said, well, this one is kind of, it lends to abuse, but we said neglect. Abandonment, neglect slash abandonment.
Let's talk about it.
All right, hold on. Let's take one,
We're gonna take one for the team
one
right here.
time, one time for the one time.
Okay, so there's two. This is a touchy subject for me. Neglect and abandonment. Why? Because right, neglect sometimes we don't realize sometimes, right? As a working mom, like I think I struggled a lot with feeling like I was neglecting my kids, right? Because I have to go to work to provide them food on the table and to provide them things which are necessary, right? And I can't not work because I've been in situations where basically I've gone to the unemployment. They're like, "Well, you're smart. You can work." Yeah, but I'm not working right now. Can I qualify for the system? You have this and that, so you can't qualify. And so I have, like I know people work the system, which honestly, if you work the system, I'm proud of y'all. I'm to be dead ass. Like I'm proud of
No,
you.
no, no, no. Let's
Proud of
let's
you.
let's
I'm proud of
let's
you.
let's say that. Let's say this. Let's say this. Let's come to a common agreement, because that one there will go. She will take the train all the way off the tracks. Okay, conductor free.
Because my inner voice
Let's
be
just
like,
say,
yo,
let's just say
that's one.
the system abuses so many people every day. We're
Yes,
not surprised when it's then abused back. That's
yes.
what we'll say. Now go ahead, what you were saying.
So I remember being turned down when I needed the assistance. So then I had to work. So now I have to work and I feel neglectful for my kid because I don't spend the beginning years with him because I have to work. And so to me, it's a touchy subject because I feel like I've struggled as a mom going to work, feeling like I'm missing out on things, like I'm not doing enough, or I get home really tired because I have no help. And that's the struggle with being a single mom, especially when you're not only a single mom, but you're a lone mom. That means that you get no support. You get no support from the other party. So when you're at that point where you get no support from the other party, man, it's tough. It's tough, getting home and trying to be your best and trying to like, give your kids the attention that they deserve and not feeling like you're neglecting, missing out on an event. So I've struggled with neglect. And the reason I struggle with neglect is because I have a child who his dad abandoned him because he had other priorities. And it's difficult watching your child suffer like that when they ask you, "Where's daddy?" Um, but low key, right? This is my baggage because my dad did the same to my mom. So you know what I mean? Like
So you
now,
chose the same person your mom chose. Like you feel that way.
and that's exactly how I feel. So now I feel worse because not only did I do this, you know what I mean? Like I caused this, nobody else did. You know what I mean? And it's allowing yourself to have grace because you made a mistake because you lack self-worth at the time that you needed it. But it's also how do you pick up from that moment? You know what I mean? Like, because you feel bad as a parent. And that was something that I struggled with a lot. And Nunu knows this. Like, like we've gone back and forth where she's like, girl, like, give yourself grace. And I have like a Sagittarius friend that she always tells me that give yourself grace because you work hard at trying to do your best. And that's the thing. Like, sometimes neglect could be that. And sometimes neglect could be like, I'm smoking. I'm not saying me, but I'm just saying, like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be another person smoking up or finding that high, whether it be with a man or with a drug,
Mm-hmm.
with a thing instead of, watching their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be the whole abandoning where you actually just detach from the child. And I think like a lot of things that a lot of times we forget to talk about is that sometimes the biggest damage that is done is by the parent that stays. So it's like it's hard sometimes knowing that, like, because I don't know about you, but like I like watching a lot of things which tell me about like how to be the best mom. And I once heard it's the parent that stays that the kid has the most traumatic experience with. And it's because you're raising them right and you spend the most time with them while the person that abandons them, like, you know what I mean? Like this is
No
how
expectations. No
no
expectations.
this is why I no longer like I no longer get upset about the whole abandonment because like at the end of the day, like he just got to walk away from everything. So now it's all on me. So let me focus on me and not focus on that. Because if I stay focused on the idea that he walked out on his kid, it does nothing for my child. And that's the thing, like sometimes we as moms, we become bitter and upset and we forget that it's it's not about us right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we want to cry. Like I told this to Nunu. There was a time that I didn't want to cry in front of my kids because I felt like I don't want them to see how upset I really am about what's happening. And so what I would do is I would cut onions so I could
Oh
feel
yeah, yeah, yeah. We said that. You told me that. You told us that. Remember?
yeah, so I could cut onions so I could like cry
Yeah.
because I'm like,
I never
then
heard.
it's okay. Like my kids would know, like, oh, she's just cutting onions. It's nothing weird. But that was my coping mechanism because like sometimes it was just hard, like knowing, like feeling like it was my fault because I followed a baggage or a trait that I had learned early on because my mom's, meter for daddy meters was off. So mine was off. And so it wasn't until like me and Nunu started having like all these in-depth conversations where she was like, girl, give yourself grace. And she was like knocking the grace into me. Like she was like, get it together, girl. But I needed that talk, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm over here like the little simp I am sometimes. I ain't never scared to shed no tear. Never will be. Never be afraid to cry. But same exact experience. I remember I was in nursing school and I had just separated with my kid's dad because of the abuse. And trying to work full time, go to school full time, and raise two toddlers. The first time I was in school, they were 2 and 3. The second time I went back to school, they were 6 and 7. And I remember feeling so guilty, like, oh my God, I'm not cooking. I'm doing like, what am I doing? I'm letting my kids down. And then I said, you doing for them what wasn't done for you, really. And I say that with all love and heartfelt, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And you're doing what their dad ain't doing because he ain't there either. You know what I mean? So, like you said, I learned to have grace. And even now, like I had to try not to get touchy when my daughter was like, remember when all we ate was KFC and McDonald's? I said, yeah, for 15 months when I was in school and working full time and trying to raise y'all and crying in class because I had to be up 36 hours working a 12-hour overnight shift, picking y'all up from the center, dropping y'all off to the center, going to clinical, coming back. Like, come on, get grace, grace. And I remember always waiting for that man to come. And because he, oh, I'm coming to get you. Oh, I got you a new bike. Oh, you know what I mean? I remember always as a little girl fantasizing about having my dad actually be there in my life, you know, and wondering what I did to deserve not being loved enough. I felt that way. And then I realized as an adult that people had their own issues and their own, you know, and now knowing what I know now, I'm kind of glad because, you know, I could have, anything could have happened to me. So, um, but I took that into my adulthood and then I clung to whoever made me fill that hole that I had missing from not having a dad. And as y'all can see, that still bothers me into my adulthood. And is primarily the reason why I go so hard as a parent. Um, we always overcompensate for something we didn't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're an amazing mom. Yo, you be doing it. You be doing that. You did that. You did that." You know what I mean? Hold on, real. Those ain't supposed to be crying. Oh, hold on. Let's take it over. Oh, let's get it together. Get it together.
You good. You good. We love you.
Yeah. And so I don't even know what I was saying, but the strength I gained from that, um, and this is leading us into to the segue that we were the what we can do when we acknowledge that we get those negative traits or those generational things or the bondages that we have or the ideas that we have or the feelings of the things that we've been discussing all this time. Um, you kind of have to learn to assess those negative traits and behaviors um, and realize that it's actually unhealthy, right? Then what did we say? We said you have to start making those changes. Like the same blueprint to success that we have in building self-worth is the same blueprint you have when you take or you're trying to strip yourself of those the generational baggage and the generational bondage that we have. It's taking that accountability like you talked about in the first episode, um, recognizing every day what you're doing because anything that you pattern, like we talked about earlier, anything that you pattern for more than 21 days or that you do for more than 21 days becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Correcting the negative behaviors when you see it. Like I think I want to discuss like fear. Like, okay, so like an example. So my daughter said to me one day, she's 17, she said, you know what you got from your mama, what you got from her mama, what you got from her mama. I said, what are you talking about? Because Anya is my philosophical, she always gonna find a way to debate. I'll be ready to just
That's what
but
you want to do on the inside.
yeah, she be trying to get at me. She said, y'all pass down fear. And I said, fear? She said, yeah. And I said, yep, I know a relative that shall remain nameless that you say, oh, I'm going to the store, don't get shot. Oh, I'm going swimming, don't drown. it's nighttime. Hey, I want to go get my food. Don't get raped. It's like when you hear that over and over again, now you scared you're gonna get raped, you scared you're gonna get shot, you scared you're gonna get robbed, you scared you're gonna drown, you scared you're gonna get stabbed, you still somebody gonna steal your car, you think somebody gonna hit you, you think, and then the trauma of being raised in the hood in Philly and drive-by shootings and stuff, and having a traumatic experience at 16, seeing my 3-year-old neighbor be murdered, rest in peace. That to this day, you know what I mean? Um, I hold my kids so tight, and it's that fear. And she said, "Yeah, I really have to unlearn this because like when I go out into this world, like what I'm be, I'm afraid to even talk to people. Like, oh no, they gonna rape me, they gonna shoot me, they gonna." And I did have a little addiction to investigation discovery. I had an addiction to the investigation discovery. Well, this is my little tangent. You know, I always gotta go on a tangent each episode. Like, that's what I do. Like I'm like, that's what I do. And I had an addiction to investigation discovery. So we were in our apartment. I had just became an RN. And it was my day off. We in the apartment. I'm with the kids. We laughing and joking. They're eating at the dining room table. I'm sitting in the living room watching Investigation Discovery. And then I see that the murder that they were talking about happened in my apartment complex where I was living. So I scream. The kids like, what? What? I'm like, she died here. They're like, who died? My kids were scared to sleep in their own bed. She didn't die. She didn't. The lady, it was 20 something years before that. She was murdered in the 4,000 building. I lived in the 1,700 building. But I was so hyped that somebody died here, you know, that my kids were so scared. I said, yeah, I'm going to have to Che on the investigation discovery because, yeah. But I said all that to say that when the whole fear thing conversation happened with my daughter, it really made me like realize, wow, you still got work to do. You still have work to do. And that's literally what we building our foundation on. Like we still have work to do, you know, and we still have growth. And I just want to say I am so proud of you for actually stepping into that and being like, yeah, you're right. Right. You're like, I'm keeping that same energy, yo. I'm like, yeah. Like that's what I want. Like if me helping you or telling you something or any of these talks we're having calls out to that inner self so that you can boss up and be like, no, I ain't tolerating that no more. You know what I mean? I want better for myself. And you deserve that. Everybody out there deserves that too. Um, and like we are so grateful and thankful for the people that are coming into this with us fresh and new. We just decided on a whim. It was a good whim. I think the whim was a good whim, don't you think? I think it was a good whim because we've been having some banging ass conversations, you know, like the conversations, you know. And the generational curses and the family thing, like I'm sure we will go deeper when we start breaking down a little bit more. But like we really just scratched the surface with what we discussed today. Is there anything else you want to say, co-creator?
Well, I want to open up the floor for anyone who wants to like comment or like ask us any questions. This topic will be continued later on at another time where we'll get more into depth about like other aspects of toxic relationships within family
Oh,
units, and you're gonna get to know more about us along the way, because we're gonna be very sincere with you guys, and we're gonna open up to like let you in with us so you can be our new BFFs. And so just comment and subscribe down below, whatever. Hit the like.
yes, I'm sure the little blinking things popping up right now. Say subscribe, comment below. It better be. You better be. We gotta learn how to.
If you guys, if you guys want to like ask us for any advice, or you want to hear how we like got over something or how we conquered something, we're always open to like giving you guys advice. We're gonna have our email down below. You can also comment. We're also gonna pick a person who subscribes or who has our favorite comment down below. So whoever comments their favorite thing down below, we're gonna go
Look
ahead.
out for we're gonna look out for the cookout.
That's right.
For
So
real.
thank you for joining us tonight, and you know, come and unwind with us next time. Maybe
Right,
get down.
right,
That's it.
right.
That's
Oh,
it.
our next topic is gonna be real juicy, girl. I don't know. We may need some red wine. We may need some red wine for that, because that's gonna be toxic relationships, relationships, situationships, and entanglements. Oh
Okay.
yes. Yes, and I'm sure we got some good stories for that, girl. I'm sure y'all got some
We're
good
gonna talk
stories.
about some celebrities along the way too.
Oh, we might have to show up
Some
on
of
that
them that have
conversation.
been in the news lately.
Yeah, we might. Well, we want to thank y'all for riding with us, rocking with us. Like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna be in the comments with y'all, busting it up, letting y'all get to know us, asking us any questions. And we hope that y'all got y'all seatbelts on, because we're gonna take y'all on a nice little smooth little ride or whatever.
Hey.
Because that's what we good at. We love y'all.